Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the live pre-match preview for Norwich versus Everton. We're moments away from the starting lineup coming out. Obviously we're always a bit on tenterhooks when we wait to see what kind of shambles Rafa Benitez is going to put out. I'm joined by Mike from the Unholy Trinity podcast. Welcome to the stream, Mike. How are you feeling ahead of this one?
If there's ever a must-win for both the side and a manager, it's today, isn't it? You know, a lot's being made of it, given the fact that we've got the majority of our players back. But there's been no excuse for weeks for me for certain performances. So this one, you know, there's no excuse today. You can argue, but it's been the same for weeks. The pressure's on, and they've got to perform, and the manager's got to, for me, make the right tactical choices from the off.
Oh, most certainly. There's a lot of reasons. I mean, let's not forget, like, how, a lot of teams above us are a good way above us now. They're starting to pull away. It's looking likely that we'll finish in the bottom six if it carries on. Well, it's certainly if it carries on, but even with an improvement, it's looking like a very disappointing league position, whatever happens. But just waiting for the news to come out. Here we go. The team is out. Our team today, guys: Jordan Pickford, Seamus Coleman, Michael Keane, Ben Godfrey, Mikalenko, Doucouré, Gomez, Gray, Gordon, Rondon, and Calvert-Lewin. It's a 4-4-2, a very aggressive 4-4-2, Calvert-Lewin and Rondon together up top, which is very interesting. Still sticking with the two in midfield that Doucouré clearly loves. So Doucouré and Gomez on their own in the middle, that doesn't sound good, does it?
I mean, the rumours came out, was it this morning? Alan's got COVID. I know the manager mentioned there was potentially one yesterday that appears to be Alan, which then means that Andre Gomez comes in from the off. And midfield two against Norwich shouldn't be as much of an issue. I prefer Alan to be in there, of course. Who's going to sit out of Gomez and Doucouré? You'd probably say Gomez. You know, but Gomez, for me, he's much better when he's got no defensive responsibility. Doucouré is much better when he's given a freer role. That's why we've been saying for weeks, let's get a midfield three and let a couple of players express themselves a little bit. And that's why we should be going out to try and get a number six to come into the midfield. And then you can then allow Alan, Doucouré or Gomez, whoever it might be, to go and play a bit further forward. The 4-4-2, Rondon starting with Calvert-Lewin is interesting. Maybe it'll help him. Maybe it'll help both of them to find a little bit more space, because the centre halves for Norwich will be occupied with the two of them. And the bench is looking pretty strong with the likes of Carlson, Yerry Mina on the bench. Obviously, El Ghazi's on there for his first time in
as well.
Patterson, of course, Andros Townsend. You know, the bench is decent, and it's got strength, which is what we've been crying for. So let's see what happens. Hopefully, you know, we can make a couple of changes when we're 2 or 3 up. But this is Everton. This is Rafael Benitez. So who knows?
I think the one downside, looking at the 11, well, the whole squad in general here, is the lack of the youngsters. I think the youngsters who did a very good job. I think Brantwaite not being in the squad, Sims, Dobbin, all out of the squad. I mean, some people might not mind that, you know, with the pressure's on, it keeps them off the firing line a bit, but I just think that they did a much better job than a lot of the senior players, and we should have been making more use of them, especially while they put a good showing in.
Yeah, the time to give them a go was when we were struggling with injuries and COVID especially, and obviously the Chelsea game was a prime example when we did see Ellis Sims from the off. Lewis Dobbin got a good sort of 20-25 minutes as well. But the time, you know, there was time to use them before the Chelsea game, after the Chelsea game, and you know, it hasn't really materialised. So frustrating for the two of them. I fully expect Ellis Sims to go on loan. Obviously, the move to Derby can't happen because of their new transfer embargo, which was certainly lined up, unless obviously something changes there. But he'll go on loan. Lewis Dobbin, you know, he hasn't signed a contract. Whether he's now given the manager indication that he doesn't want to sign a contract and he's going to move for free, who knows? It could be happening in the background. We just don't know. But there's definitely been a time for the younger players to be getting more of an opportunity, should I say. Because like you say, they certainly put a shift in, or more of a shift than what we've seen from some of the senior players this season.
Yeah, I think it's a shame, to see that those players performed and haven't been rewarded for that. But like you say, there's a lot less in terms of there's a lot less holes in the squad. A few of these new signings sort of plug in a few gaps. So hopefully we've got the right personnel when we need them to call upon in these scenarios where there might be a bit of trouble where we need to strengthen a midfield, maybe, or in this case, it seems to be two up top, and it's like two out and out strikers up top. It's not like a sort of grey playing up top, which we've seen recently, or it's two out and out big centre forwards.
I mean, the important thing I think today is, with having those two centre forwards, you've got to give them the service. So there's a lot of pressure on Anthony Gordon and Damari Gray to do that. We know the two of them are more than capable of assisting. They're more than capable of carrying the ball at pace and putting fullbacks under pressure. So a lot of pressure on the two of them today to really step up and look to get crosses into the box early. We know Dom's movements is good. We know he's now a proper number 9 and has developed really well over the last 18 months, 2 years. Rondon, we know he's limited. But like I say, maybe it will help him to have a partner today to take a little bit of that pressure off him, because we've seen it too often where he's playing up front on his own. He's isolated. He's being asked to do what Dom can do quite well on his own. And he's not the same kind of player. He's not the same kind of ability. He's at the back end of his career. So maybe having another body around him will be good for him. And hopefully, maybe he can bag a goal and that'll help his confidence. But the most important thing today is not about individuals. It's about the team winning the game of football. Because if we don't win this game today, we're right in trouble. Make no mistake. We're not too good to go down. No side, bar maybe the top sort of 4, 5, 6 are too good to go down. So we've got to win the game today. And
you lose to Norwich, you deserve to go down.
Well, yeah, they're the worst team in the league, aren't they? And this is not us.
Sort of, but they'll probably beat us. That's the thing. It's like the worst team in the league is probably us at the moment, to be honest.
No, well, on form, of course we are. But I think if you look at over the course of the season so far, they have been the worst team. And I know obviously on any given day any side can beat any other side, and this is no disrespect to Norwich, but if you can't beat Norwich, then you've got serious problems. We've got the ability. Look at that side today. He should be too strong to win the game. We know we're struggling with confidence. We know in terms of how we've set up in most of our previous games, it's not being right. But you've got to take some kind of confidence from getting through the cup last week, as poor of a performance it might have been. You've won your last game, you through to round 4. You've got to have some kind of confidence. You've got to think, well, okay, we've got players back in. The squad's looking stronger. The players must feel now, looking at that squad, it's much better than what we've had over the last, say, 6 to 8 weeks. So, like I said at the start of the show, there really is no excuse now for that squad today to go to Norwich, win the game, come away with 3 points, take the pressure off, get the fans a little bit more relaxed than what we've been for quite a while, and then obviously then go on to the next game with more confidence.
Yeah, a lot of people are obviously saying the same thing. Must-win game. If Norwich are going to score against anyone, it's going to be us.
From a set piece.
From a set piece. Absolutely from a set piece. I sound like a broken record on these previews, but every time I say we're going to concede a goal from a set piece, because every game it seems to be proven right. Even Hull, Brighton, it's
that's sad, really, isn't it? Because I'm sure that every side that comes to face us, I'm sure they work on set pieces over the course of the week, because it's our Achilles heel. We seem to have got things sorted under Carlo Ancelotti. Obviously, his son was very, very good at that side of things, and we seem to get it right, and the players seem to adjust to that system pretty well. Obviously, when the new manager came in, he changed it. He went to a full zonal. He's now gone back to this hybrid system which we're used to. But personnel in that kind of system is really important. You've got to know your job. You've got to be comfortable. Bigger players is absolutely vital. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin is vital to that system, only just coming back in. Yerry Mina is vital to that system, not yet come back in. So when you lose two of your bigger players through injury, it is going to impact the actual system itself when you've got smaller players trying to do that job. But again, there's no excuse. Professional footballers should be able to adjust to defensive setups from set pieces, in my opinion. So the players, I know the manager's under pressure, rightly so. He's got a lot of things wrong this season. The players have got to set themselves up correctly, have the right attitude, and show something today as well, because they've been missing as well. I know it's got lost a little bit because of the manager, but the players have gone missing too often as well.
Oh, definitely. The players have got a lot to answer for, I think. Like, it's happened under managers before. Benitez, I know the majority of the fan base has had enough of Benitez, but the players have let other managers down before this. And that is why I was saying earlier about the younger lads should have more of a chance, because they haven't down tools on managers like some of the senior players have.
No, it seems to be. How many seasons have we been saying that for, though, haven't we, about players down in tools? And, they seem to really influence managers losing the job. And, you've got to start looking at the actual players and looking at their attitude and their commitment and their will to win. And, are they too quick to down tools and, take exception to things that are happening? We don't know. We don't know. We're on the outside looking in. But like we always say, you can't sack a squad of 20, 25 players, so that the four guys always a manager. But let's get it right. This manager is rightly so the four guy, because he's not learning lessons from previous games. We can see there's issues in terms of playing a midfield two in the majority of games. The personnel he's actually using in the middle of being an issue. And doesn't seem to want to address it. Or when he does address it in a game, i.e. Wolves away, it was too late. And you've already lost the game. So the manager's not learning the lesson from the mistakes that he's making. So rightly so, he's going to become the four guy. And when you throw into the mix, he's having fallouts with players as well. That's not going to help his cause either, because Luca Dean was a fan's favourite. He's now moved to Aston Villa. And it's sad for us as fans to actually see how that came about, when you seemingly got a player who was happy to be at the club, and then within a couple of months of the new manager coming in, it's all falling apart. So a lot going on behind the scenes, a lot of questions for the manager to answer. Let's hope today that we can go some way into getting some answers to those questions.
Indeed. Go through a few of the comments here. You've got Peter Carey, come on, you Blues, enough is enough. Time to put it right. Can't handle another weekend feeling down. Agreed. Yeah, a lot of the same sort of sentiments. Aidan John Sullivan again. If we don't win this, I'm done with Everton. That's a very similar sentiment there. Semi-sharp life. Midfield two and relying on Rondon proves Rafa hasn't got a clue.
The thing is, though, like you said, with the midfield two against Norwich, if you attack the game and if you go about it in the right way and you approach the game as you are the better side and you've got more quality, it shouldn't be a problem. The problem we've got is we don't attack the game, and then what we find is the midfield gets overrun. So that's where the problem is. It's attitude of actually starting the game on the front foot, which we have not seen probably all season, to be perfectly honest. And it's whether that can change as well, because you can go with a midfield too. We've seen it in the early part of the season when we turned games around. We still looked open, but we had enough to win the game. So against some sides, you can do that. And until you actually go out and buy and change the personnel for a midfield two, it's going to be that way. So some teams you will get away with it. And against Norwich, we should get away with it. But there's no guarantee that we're going to, because of obviously the form that we're in. But I think this midfield three going forward, for me, is the way forward, because you don't need to crowd your defence with bodies. You've got to crowd a midfield. You win and lose a game in the midfield and losing that midfield battle. And that's what we've been seeing too often.
But like you say, though, why isn't he seeing that?
I think he does. I just think that in his mind, I don't even think it's that. I just think that he thinks that he wants to play a particular way these players have got to adapt to that style of football and that setup. But the problem we've got is, as I say, that's all well and good. But as a manager, you've got to be adaptable if you haven't got the players to play that particular system. If they're struggling and we haven't got legs, which we clearly haven't got legs, Gomez has not got legs to recover defensively. He's a lovely footballer for me on his day. I've always been a fan of Andre Gomez. I've got a lot of time for him. I know people have got different opinions, and that's totally fine. If you play him in his right position further forward, he's a player. He's a good technical player. He's shown it when he was younger at obviously Valencia, Barcelona, sides like that. So there's certainly a player in there, but don't play him as a number 6. Go and let him express himself as a 8 or 10, if you like, and go and let him go further forward, and he can do a job. But that's the concern again today. We're looking at that midfield too and thinking, okay, where exactly, if obviously Norwich starts to boss the midfield, how are we going to adapt? How are we going to win that midfield battle? And that's where the question then comes in.
Indeed, I think Semi-Charm Life's described the issues here very well. I think midfield 2 with Gomez doesn't work because Gomez lacks pace, can't defend well. I remember that statistic where, I think he'd been that first season under Ancelotti where he'd been dribbled past more than the whole of the Watford midfield put together. I think that's sort of tells you about his inability to defend, and he doesn't really put tackles in. He's not quick enough, so players breeze past him. And that again, like Semi-Charm Life's just said here, it's going to stifle Decore. He's not going to get forward and join the attacks, which, as he says there, is one of his best attributes.
Yeah, you do. I mean, we know that. We've seen it with Decore early part of the season again, where we were having some success, and the shackles were almost off with him, and he wasn't being asked to play quite as deep, and he was allowed to go. And we saw it. He was assisting, he was scoring, and that's what that's what his game is. And when we look at Decore at Watford, that's what he did really well, carrying the ball forward, linking up with the front 2, whatever it might be, the forward players. And again, now we're now seeing more and more of the Decore of old, where he's sitting deep again. And today, like it's just being said then, he's going to be the one who's going to be asked to sit that much deeper. Whether they try and play the 2 of them fairly deep, and they're saying then, so obviously the front 4 in terms of the 2 wide players, Rondon and Calvert-Lewin. Listen, you've got to basically have maybe one person who drops in as a 10 potentially to pick the ball up. I'd probably say you could probably drop Dom in behind Rondon, let Rondon sort of be slightly further forward if you need to pick the ball up. But again, it's sort of fitting people in to the wrong positions if you go about it that way. But I think as the game goes on, if it stays 0-0 and you're looking to change things, you've got off the bench, you can play Townsend central if you want as a 10. Gordon can drop in there, Craig could drop in there, Richardson's on the bench, throw him on. We've got bodies there now, we've got players and a bit more quality, but it's going to be really important how we start the game, isn't it? We see too often, we've seen it in recent weeks, right, in Hull, in the cup.
Slowly.
Well, we start slowly all bloody season, but we're conceding goals, aren't we, within the first 5 minutes? And if you do that against any side, you make it difficult for yourself to get back in the game. We've got to win the game, so go out there on the front foot, take the game to them, and let's get 1 or 2 goals. Let's try and be positive for once.
Yeah, I think we need to be attacking Norwich. If we're not, we deserve to go down.
Just say, there's no excuse. As I say, I know football isn't played on paper, but you look at the sides on paper, we should have too much on our best day. We haven't been anywhere near our best for a long, long time. But I expect us to win the game. And, I don't want to be speaking about this game on our podcast tomorrow and what have you, and looking back at another Everton defeat and another woeful Everton performance, because it would be totally inexcusable. And we've got to win this game.
You've mentioned a lot of, bar and Tom Davis, the whole team is available now. There's no excuses.
There's not, as I say, there's been no excuse for weeks. There's no excuse to lose at home to Brighton. There's no excuse to get beat by Brentford or Crystal Palace. Even with the side that we had, we should have had too much, and we didn't show enough. Whether it's, the manager set us up incorrectly, which he has. The player's attitude has not been spot on, which it hasn't. Today, okay, as I say, the quality is there within the squad, on the bench especially. how fit those players are. You know, the likes of Richarlison has come back from a tear in his calf pretty quickly. Yerry Mina, he comes back, he breaks down. He comes back, he breaks down. How fit is he? You know, we're not sure how fit some of these players are. Andros Townsend played in pain against Hull and had a shot with his right foot because his left foot, they didn't want to hit his left foot again because it was broken. So we've still got those kind of issues. So the squad looks great on paper in terms of today, but it's how fit those players on the bench actually are. El Ghazi would be interesting to think, you know, not a deal that we would have seen coming. Obviously formed part of the negotiations for the Luca Dean transfer. Got to give him a chance, of course. You know, I know we had a good goal scoring record last season, 6 with penalties out of his 10 goals. But give him a chance, see how he gets on. You know, apparently he's good in the air as well, which is helpful. Could make a difference last 15, 20 minutes. So we've got to really today let this start 11 do the work. Let us get comfortable for once. I pray for a game where I'm not sitting there, you know, chewing my nails, you know, with sort of 15, 20 to go. Let's try and be comfortable, make a few changes.
I'm not being funny, Mike. We haven't even been chewing our nails this season. It's been wanting to put our foot through the TV by half time most of the time.
Yeah, of course. It's frustrating. We're all feeling it. You know, there's no way, like you said, we could very much finish in the bottom 6, which for me would be absolutely appalling. You know, and I understand that. I'm not saying we've got a squad that we should be challenging top 4. We should have done by now, by the way, but that's a different story. The squad that we've got should certainly be challenging that top half of the table, and there's a strong possibility that we won't.
And get close.
Well, potentially not. You know, it all depends what happens with other sides as well, and whether we can hit any kind of form. But the way you look at us at the moment, and you can't see us getting anywhere near that top 10. And again, that for me is inexcusable. So as much as this manager's being brought in to try and stabilise things before the move to Bramley-Moore, you've still got to look at, well, what should he be achieving with the squad?
He's not stabilising, though. He's causing more chaos.
He is, but that obviously, I mean, we probably saw that coming. A lot of dissenting voices when he first got brought in. But, you know, he has been brought in by the owner to bring some kind of stability on the pitch. It's not worked that way. If rumours are to be believed, he had positive talks yesterday with the manager, and he's still being backed, which we all knew because he's been given the keys to the castle, judging by what we heard a few weeks ago. But if you're going to look back on this season, and like I say, we're in the bottom 6, then you're going to question the performance of the manager, the performance of the players, and should that squad be in the bottom 6? For me, even with injuries that we've had, no, we shouldn't.
Well, I think you've got to realise the issue we've got here under Machidi, regardless of Benitez being in the dugout or not, is that, you know, 5 years ago when he took over, okay, Roberto Martinez finished 11th, but Martinez was a poor manager, I thought, and underperformed badly with the squad he had. I think when Machidi took over, we still had the 7th best squad in the league. I'd now argue that the 14 sides that are above us, and maybe even Leeds, who are just below us, are better than us. I'd say we're the 16th best team in the league.
I don't know. I mean, I probably wouldn't go as far as that. At the moment, we are, of course, because the league table doesn't lie. I know we've got games in hand, but you'd rather have points on the board as opposed to games in hand. I wouldn't quite put us as low as that. I think the squad, you know, the sort of, we've got, say, 12 or 13, where you think, okay, trustworthy players, got a bit of quality. We should be beating, you know, maybe 60% of the sides with our best team. But the issue that we've got, and what we're paying for, are the mistakes that have been made since Mashiri's come in, spending silly money on similar players, silly money on players that are nowhere near worth that kind of money, which gives you obviously a squad then which hasn't got the same or the quality that you need to actually progress. Players then lose the value and you can't get rid of them because no other side wants to touch them. I mean, you look at the likes of obviously Chen Tossen as an example. Alex Iwobi hasn't hit the heights that we hoped that he would do. They're just two examples of players that you're going to lose money on. So mistakes have been made. We're paying the price now. But even the basis of that squad should still be enough to be challenging for that top 10. It's just, there's no way for me, looking at our best side, that there's 9 or 10 teams better than us, or there shouldn't be. Should I say we've got to be a lot more ruthless off the pitch to then become more ruthless on the pitch, I think.
Agree, but is that going to happen under Mashiri? I don't think it is. I think he's too gullible. I think we can't doubt his business acumen, but I was thinking about this the other day. We talk about I think a lot of people sort of gave him the benefit of the doubt because he's a ruthless businessman, but Alan Sugar's one of the most notoriously ruthless businessmen, one of the most revered businessmen in the country, and he ran Tottenham Hotspur like a circus for 10 years. Because you're a good businessman is not enough in football. You've got to know football.
It's not a positive transfer, is it? I know you talk about being a good businessman and making money and things like that. Football is a totally different world for me. I know business is business.
Business is business, but football is a different type of business.
Yeah, you've got to know the business. You've got to, I know he's got contacts. I know he's been involved in football in terms of Arsenal for many, many years, and obviously then Everton, he's come in as well and taken over the reins, so to speak. The problem with Farhad Moshiri is, and as grateful as we are for getting to the stage that we are at with Bramley Moore, which will be his legacy, and I fully expect him when that is complete, he'll be on his way. The problem we've got is he's got too many people in his ear. He's surrounded by people that he trusts, that in the world of football maybe shouldn't be trusted. The likes of Keith Athens is a prime example of that. He's sticking his oar in. He's dealing with a lot of our transfer negotiations. He's saying to Farhad Moshiri, what about El Ghazi from Aston Villa? Things like that. It's ridiculous. You've got to get people into the right jobs and then trust them to do the job correctly. Having other people, the likes of Jagabtrin on the go. I mean, Usmanov, not sure how much of a say he's got. Everyone thinks he's the one who backs Farhad Moshiri, but there's too many cooks, isn't there? Bill Kenwright obviously is still doing a lot of the UK transfer negotiations. He was heavily involved with the Patterson deal. Obviously, Marcel Brand had a role in all that. We're looking at another director of football coming in. Rafael Benitez, he's doing negotiations. You've got to get it right. You've got to have this independent review of the board, of the running of the club. None of this internal review by the people who are the biggest issue. What's the point of that? I could look at my job and look at my performance and work and say how well I'm doing. It's not difficult. Get someone in who's independent and basically get them to say, right, this is where you're going wrong. This person needs to go. This person needs to go. And then move on from there. Until we do that, then we're going to be in the same sort of hamster wheel, if you like, going round and round and round in circles. And we'll just be treading water for a long, long time.
But the thing is, you can only tread water for so long. Like I say, this time 5 years ago, we were the 7th best team. Now I'd argue we're certainly a bottom half team. Whereabouts, we don't know. But as time's gone on, more and more teams are improving and overtaking us. If we carry on like this, we will be relegated. It might not be this season, but it will happen. I know it'll probably happen the year we move into the new stadium.
Yeah, you're totally right. You've got to get all your ducks in a row to be able to actually improve. And like you say, if we're going to get to the point where we've been on this knife edge for a couple of seasons, and in the end we tip off it. We ran out of luck. There's so many things wrong with the internal aspect of this football club. So many things that we're not even probably aware of, and it's going to take a big overhaul to actually get it right. There's so many things that we need to fix. Obviously, to us as fans, the most important thing for us is the football on the pitch, week in, week out. There's nothing more important than the next game. But you do look at the future. You do look at Bramley Moore, as we all do. And I know it's always used as an excuse, but you do look at it and think, we want a side that is capable of competing at the right end of the Premier League table, in cup competitions, qualifying for Europe when we get to that ground. We did it for years under David Moyes, where we should have won multiple trophies under David Moyes. We should have won various trophies. Let's get that right. That was a mentality thing. But what he did do is he built a squad of similar characters who knew what it was like and what it meant to play for the football club. We were limited in what we could spend, and he got the best out of out of the players that he brought in. And we knew what our identity was, and those players, the majority, would leave it all on the pitch week in, week out. We're at a point now where we've got absolutely no idea what the identity of our football club is. We've got no idea about the direction. So as I said, it's going to take a huge overhaul of people, of attitudes, for us to actually turn a corner.
But at one stage, when do we decide enough is enough with the ownership as supporters? Do we have to wait for the stadium to open?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because
have that off the agenda until we can start criticising the owner.
The turning point, I think, has come, hasn't it? I think we shouldn't be looking at social media for an indication of what the majority of Everton fans are thinking. We know social media can be a toxic place. We know people can say things and maybe not truly mean them. But we also know that not every single Everton fan is represented on Twitter. Let's get that right. But we do see, and we have seen, as this season's gone on, especially in the last maybe 4 to 6 weeks, that there's a lot of dissenting voices. A lot of fans are getting behind this 27 campaign, as an example. A lot more banners seem to be getting made and taken to the ground, home and away. So more and more people are questioning the owner and are saying, listen, you need to basically step up, get your house in order and sort us out. So I think we've turned that corner. I think people are now more and more annoyed at the direction or lack of direction that the club are actually on at this moment in time. And, maybe Mashiri potentially gets away with a little bit because of the fact that, we know he's put money into the club. We know he's the one who sorted Bramley Moore out. And so he gets cut slightly more slack. But people are now seeing and are now saying, listen, you're also an issue as well. Because like you said earlier on, James, the lack of, he's a businessman, but doesn't know the football business. It's a totally different thing. So I think questions are starting to be asked, but I do think that he'll be there until Bramley Moore is finalised, it's open, and then you'll probably see him go.
But I think, to be honest, it's interesting. Obviously, I think Arsenal fans have given Kroenke pelters for years, but the best thing Kroenke may well have ever done is probably have stopped him and Usmanov having more control, because that was where a lot of fans at Arsenal were upset that they weren't given more of a say. But I'll be honest, I think Kroenke's probably got more understanding of sports business than they have. So, even if he is the lesser of two evils, I just think we've got to, in Mashiri at least, an absolute charlatan running the football club.
I just think don't think charlatan is potentially the word, but I think it's, as I said, when you've got so many people just pecking away and chirping away and giving their advice and what have you, it's up to him as an individual and as a businessman to say, listen, hang on, this is my club now. I'm the majority shareholder. What I say goes, and I will appoint people to basically make the right decisions for me. The director of football side of things should have worked. You brought in a man who's renowned for what he did. Okay, in a lesser league, we know that the Dutch league is not nowhere near the strength of the Premier League, not as competitive. But you've got a man who knows the football transfer market, should we say, and he's seen talent and he's brought talent in, and that was what it was all about, getting him, like we're seeing now with Mikalenko and Patterson, 2 young lads who basically will come in, hopefully they are a success, and when you come to sell them, you make a big profit on them, and then you go again, and so on. That's what the model should be. That's what it was, or should have been, should have stayed with Marcel Brands. But, and I'm not sitting here as a huge advocate of Marcel Brands. I'm sitting here as a huge advocate for that role. If you're going to go about your business and bring in somebody in that particular role, let them do the job. Simple as that. Don't bring them in, because all Everton did for me is they brought someone in. Steve Walsh at first, he was just pathetic, but they brought him then Marcel Brands, and he was brought in as a director of football by name only. It's almost as if, I've said this before on our show, if he wanted to sort of fit in, he wanted to seem that we were relevant and we were keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak. So we brought in a director of football, and everyone goes, oh, whatever. That's all. Yeah, that's all that it was for me. So,
It was a big name. I think that's all Mashiri's ever done since he came in was try and bring in big names. Bringing in, again, like, even like, I know he did a good job, Carlo Ancelotti. I think, again, that's just a statement of intent type thing, but the intent's not even there. It's just the statement's there.
I think Ancelotti, if Ancelotti comes in maybe 2 or 3 years earlier, when, you know,
Instead
the
of
money
was, or something.
Yeah, and the money was there, then I think it would have been a real success. I know, obviously, the back end of last season was poor. I've got a feeling that the players knew the manager was off. The manager knew that he was off because he was told what the financial situation was going to be in the summer. So he couldn't bring in, he was never going to get instant success. You know, we saw him bring in James, Alan, obviously, Decore, Ben Godfrey, people like that. And to get 59 points, by the way, was a fantastic, you look at where we are now, but yeah, what we give for 59 points at the end of this season, it's not going to happen. But if he comes in 2 or 3 years earlier with more money, you would have got the success. I think with Ancelotti, it's just that he's come a little bit too late. We're on the edge with the financial situation. He knew that. I think if he would have got European football, then it would have cut us or cut him a little bit more in terms of the financial side of things, and maybe he would have stayed on. But it just came maybe 2 or 3 years too late, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think for me, the point wasn't making that Ancelotti wasn't good enough. I think he was very much good enough. But again, was that the reason why he was brought in, or was it just another one of Mashiri's, Hollywood's signings? Like, look, we've got Ancelotti, we've got Brands, one of the biggest names in this role, but we're not going to really let him do his job. Again, we've got James Rodriguez. I mean, even if he was like the right player, and Ancelotti obviously works well with him, I feel like a lot of it was all done to raise eyebrows in terms of the signings we were making, rather than actually being strategic and building a team.
Yeah, I mean, the team that Ancelotti tried to build was built for instant success, and there wasn't enough behind that, so to speak. I mean, obviously, James had injury problems every other week, and when it was sunny, when he was fit, he looked $1 million. The problem with James was it was always going to be an issue that his body couldn't take playing the Premier League. 38 games a season. But yeah, obviously it was a Hollywood signing, wasn't it? No one saw us getting Carlo Ancelotti. So yeah, it was an element of that. We know Mashiri likes that side of the game, likes that Hollywood aspect, and for him maybe it's a bit of a trophy, isn't it? To go to his other friends within the business. I've just brought in his Everton manager. Look who we've just signed. Maybe it was, but I think the failure of the side to not get European football is probably what cost us quite a bit from last season. If we get European football, I think we look at things differently. It's I think maybe a sliding doors moment in terms of Ancelotti. If we get it, he stays, and you could probably argue the Hammers would have stayed. We have a little bit more money to spend, maybe. Obviously, it went the other way. We didn't qualify. He went. Benitez comes in, but then you would argue, wouldn't Damari Gray, would he have come? Potentially not. We just don't know, do we? But sliding doors moments didn't work out in the end. But maybe it was just a Hollywood signing.
To be honest, mate, I think I'd give it any sort of change in sliding doors moments if it meant Benitez never came here.
Well, that's it. I mean, he would do other options. Maybe David Moyes, potentially. He was touted. He was definitely spoken to. Big Dunk, how would that have worked out? We just don't know, really. I mean, we know Nuno was pretty close after rejecting the Palace job. We thought, here we go, he's nailed on. Didn't happen. So, yeah, it's one of those. It's who would we have got? And if this manager does go, which I've certainly not nailed on, but if he does go, who comes in? Who's going to replace the manager? Again, we're in the same situation. We just don't know. But we are where we are. We've got to deal with it ourselves.
Certainly. There's a few more comments in the chat here. Gavin Cunningham says Keane and Coleman have been our biggest problem. I think Coleman just too old. Decent player, but he's too old. Keane is a problem. I agree with that. I think he's turning into a disaster of a signing. 5 years of very, very subpar service. Some good games in there, but generally he's nowhere near good enough for me.
Michael Keane's biggest issue is obviously consistency, but it goes hand in hand with the system that we play. If we're asked to play that bit deeper, then he loves it. That's his bread and butter. When he was at Burnley, that's what he used to play week in, week out. People like to call it this low block in modern football, whatever you want to call it. For me, you sit a bit deeper, then he does well. And we've seen him perform well this season, to be honest with you. He has had good games. I mean, Chelsea away had a good game. We do see him do it when he's asked to, for the defence to drop back maybe a yard or two. When he's asked to play slightly further forward and hold that line further forward, we know he hasn't got that recovery pace. So straight away, he struggles. At times, I think he doesn't read the game particularly well. And it's one of those. Michael Keane, even when he was signed, he was always limited. He'd come obviously from Manchester United, which he had to really, really work. He'd tell you himself, he had to really, really work to stay there for the length of time that he did. Went to Burnley, ideal for him. If we sold Michael Keane, he'd go back to Burnley, to be honest with you. He's not the a centre half really that we should now going forward be having in our side. We need a more progressive centre forward, one in the mould, maybe better in the air, but the same kind of pace as Ben Godfrey. But Keane, Keane is one of those. Maybe end of the season, he could be gone.
He should be, in my opinion. If we're serious about trying to improve, I think he should be gone. He is a bottom half player.
We're a bottom half.
The reasons we're a bottom half team.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we can't lay it all at Michael Keane's door. There's a lot of other players there who were bottom half players. Some of them aren't even Premier League players. Let's get it right. But he's an issue. The fact I think he played every game this season. Only player to do so, Michael Keane. So
possibly.
I think he has. Yeah. So that's where we are. But it shows obviously from a fitness point of view that he's obviously one of those players who can keep himself fit and he's ready to go each game. We've had issues surrounding Yerry Mina. Obviously, Ben Godfrey suffered heavily at the start of the season through COVID. Mason Holgate in and out of the side through discipline, and he's poor as well. Let's get that right. So I think in the summer, centre half will need to be addressed.
Yeah, I think Godfrey I'm pretty happy with. Everyone else, I think we could really do with changing.
Yeah, Ben Godfrey's going to be a good centre half. We know he's got the pace. People don't seem to. I keep on banging this drum because he was in a terrible state from COVID. He was really poor, lost loads of weight. Obviously, trying to get back from that after being so ill. When you rely so much on your pace, it's very, very difficult. So for me, I cut him a lot of slack. I think, but now the last sort of month or so, he's getting back in. His pace seems to be back. He seems to be doing well there. He turned 24 today. He's got a lot to learn. He's got a lot to learn as a footballer, as a centre half. Because obviously we see him play left back, right back, centre half. He's asked to do a variety of jobs. So he's got so much to learn. He's got to consistently play as a centre half to actually learn what that role is all about. But he's your typical modern day centre back, isn't he? And he'll be absolutely fine. You're looking at who's going to partner Ben Godfrey for me over the next 2 or 3 years, because Keane not good enough, Holgate not good enough. Yerry Mina will be sold because he gets injured all the time.
Yeah, Yerry Mina, to be fair, is a very good player, but we can't be having someone with that kind of injury record, even if he is a likeable player and is one of our best performers when fit. He's just not fit enough.
Exactly right. I mean, Yerry Mina is probably our best centre half, but he's just not fit. So he's massively improved from his first sort of 18 months. I thought last season he was very good. But then, this season he's good when he's played. But if you can't rely on someone to play 30, 35 games a season and you're getting, say, 20, that's just no good. For the outlay that we paid for Yerry Mina, you've got to replace him. And as much as I like him, as obviously like within the squad, he's a laughing and he's a joke. And, as I say, we certainly defend better when he's on the pitch. If you can't rely on him, then for me, he has to be replaced.
Yeah, I think I think Godfrey's the only one. I think Brantwaite's obviously waiting in the wings as well. Like, definitely keep hold of him. But I think bringing in another first choice defender to play next to Godfrey's a must now.
100%. I mean, Brantwaite's great because he's left-footed. So if you want to go left and right footer, he's ideal. He's massive. I think he's bigger than Yamina. Look at him on the video footage. If not, he's very, very similar in height to him. So he's going to be, he's got a lot of growing to do as well. He's going to be a big lad. So maybe him and Godfrey would really, really work, complement each other with the fact that he's not as quick. But a left and right footer in modern day football at the back is fantastic. So he will progress and develop. But like you say, I think a first team are ready now to go in. That's a job for the summer.
Yeah, if we have any sense, but you know what we're like in the transfer markets. Let's go through a few of the comments here. Decore and Gomez, Wormy Spoon says 2-man midfield. This is going to be tough. Yeah, I think we've discussed that, haven't we? I think how that could easily get overrun. I mean, Norwich aren't the best team, but I don't think it takes any world beaters to overrun our midfield, to be honest. I think Hull did a decent enough job of it last week, so don't doubt that they can give us a game. A few predictions coming in. We will finish up with the predictions in a moment, but just a few more comments. UK Genetics says, this is my last chance on Rafa. It's a must-win game. And I think that sums it all up, doesn't it, really? I think if he loses this game, it's untenable for me.
It's been untenable for weeks for me, and that's... People will go back to obviously who the man is and what he's done in his previous managerial life, if you like. But that makes no odds to me. If you can come in and you can make a success of things, then you're going to get back. Doesn't matter who you are, where you've been, what you've done. It doesn't matter. The point is, any other manager in any other club, if they were going through this kind of run of form, they'd be gone. So I'm not saying I hate the way that since David Moyes, what have we become in terms of the managers that we've actually brought in, replaced, etc., etc. It's been ridiculous. But this was the wrong appointment. This wasn't a case of, and I've tried to give him as much time as anyone, and I've backed him up, as much as I can, give him time. We started the season well. The players seem to be running more than he had done in the last season, especially. Let's see what he can do. Injuries hit. I cut him slack. Listen, we've lost. We're not just losing squad players, we're losing our best players to injury. Let's see. Let's wait for the players to get back. But we've got to the point now where even when players have come back in, he's not learned, as I said at the start of the show, he's not learned his lesson. He's not learning basically what your layman football fan can see that we need to do to change to then go on and win matches. And that's a frustrating thing. Someone said in the comments before about him being stubborn. We can see it. We can see it week in, week out. Maybe today it'll be different. Who knows? He's gone obviously 2 up top. The 2 midfielder is a concern. I think obviously with having the injury to Tom Davis and Alan being out with COVID, that's probably maybe forced his hand a little bit. Maybe he's trying something different by putting 2 up front. Who knows? He'll be determined on results. And let's get it right. The results have not been good enough. But like you say, lose today. He's got to go.
Yeah, Pokey Jedi agrees as well. If we lose or even draw, I feel he has to go.
A draw will save him with the board. But for me, there's no excuse.
Anything other than a win today is unacceptable. Let's get that straight. And unfortunately, to be honest, I did a preview for this a couple of days ago, and I predicted the draw.
Yeah, and it could happen. Definitely
not beyond the realms of possibility.
A score draw is probably the favourite result, to be honest with you, because both sides are in poor form. And I think someone put it really well before on social media. They said, who would Norwich pick to play at the moment? Everton. And who would Everton pick to play at the moment? It'd be Norwich. So it's 2 out of form sides. So, are we going to cancel each other out? Or are Everton going to show that we are a better side and actually pull a win out of the bag?
Indeed. So with that in mind, anyway, we'll finish up here. We're going to do our, just going to reel through all the comments. We've had predictions coming in all the way through the show. Semi-Charm Life's gone 3-1 to Everton. Sean Collins 2-3. I think that means an Everton away win. Hopefully. I think if we lose 3-2, I think my head would roll. CAU Roman 2-0 Everton. He's gone for people generally pretty optimistic, it seems. Yeah, it's generally Jamie Murray says, I think the Toffee's 2-0. Yeah. Weather forecast, I think Everton 2-5. I hope that means we win 5-0. Fingers crossed. I mean, I think none of us would ever see that coming, even if people are feeling optimistic. A 5-goal margin in our favour. When's that ever happened?
No.
Aidan John Sullivan 2-1. Come on, you Blues. A few more predictions coming in. Pokey Jedi goes with a 2-0 Everton win. David Woolard 3-1 Everton. Inky Squid is going with a 2-1 Everton win. DCL and Rondon or greater score. And finally, K-Pack 55, 2-0. Gray getting one and Gordon getting one. Yeah, so we'll finish up there, guys. Before I finish, obviously, I've just said I gave my prediction for a draw, which is maybe a bit pessimistic, but what can I say? It's just the way Everton's made me these days. Yalis Sukumaran, I think 2-0. Moza 3-1, my lovelies. Come on, you Blues. Yeah, it's generally quite optimistic. I seem like I'm the most pessimistic. I'll finish this one up anyway by going for your prediction, Mike. What's your prediction?
I'm going to say a sneaky 2-1 win to Everton. Dean's just copied me there.
Dean must have been listening in there. Dean's gone for the 2-1 Everton win as well.
Yeah.
Very optimistic considering the circumstances, guys. So fair play to you for all tuning in and still feeling good about yourselves, because I don't. And fair play to you, Mike, as well. 2-1 Everton win. Mike's gone for. I went for a draw because I'm a very worn down, browbeaten Evertonian at the moment. Yeah, but Mike's gone for a win. So hopefully we do get the win. God forbid if we don't. But we're coming up to kick off now anyway. 10 minutes to go, guys. Yeah, get yourselves game ready and brace yourselves, strap yourselves in. And hopefully we come out, in 2 hours' time, 2 hour or 2.5 hours' time for the post-match stream. And whoever's doing that, fair play. I hope you're smiling and hoping you're feeling pretty good after hopefully a win. But let's see what happens, guys. Over to the Everton team now, and hopefully we get a decent result. Come on, you Blues. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Make sure you're giving this stream a like and, of course, subscribe for more content. And until next time, guys, thanks for tuning in on the Toffee Blues.